my friends. It is now time for the Soulful Psalm segment of Beacon of Truth on this Thanksgiving Day. And this Soulful Psalms, we take a look at one of the Psalms from the book of Sung Praises, from the wisdom literature of the Old Testament, the Jewish hymnal, if you will. And we hear these Psalms in every Mass, and we connect this Psalm to your everyday lived experience. So today we're continuing our look at Psalm 42. So Psalm 42 is the first Psalm in Book 2 of the Psalms. Psalms 42 to 72 make up Book 2, and Psalms 42 to 49 are by the sons of Korah. Psalm 50 is Asaph, and Psalms 51 through 72 are attributed to David. So Psalm 42 to 49, the sons of Korah. So remember, Korah rebelled against Moses and Aaron in Numbers chapter 16. So if you look right at the beginning of Numbers chapter 16, you'll see what's called the Korite rebellion. And as a result of that rebellion, it says that the ground opened and Korah and his family went down alive to Sheol, and the ground closed in over them. Yikes, man. So and then right after that it says fire from heaven came down and consumed the other sons of Korah, right? The followers of Korah. About 250 of them. And the only ones that survived were the sons of Korah. These were the Korahites that chose not to follow the rebellion. And and they we see that in Numbers chapter 26 verse 11. And they were not only superintendents of the musical guild of the Jewish temple, the sons of Korah were also the caretakers and custodians of the sacred vessels and vestments that were used in the worship of God in the temple, right? And Korah, by the way, means baldness in Hebrew, all right? So Psalm 42. The prescript, the superscript of the psalm is very simple. It says, Lemenzeach, Maskil, Livni Korah. For the choir master, a maskil, again, maskil means enlightened one or scholar. That's what it means today. We don't know exactly what this word meant back at the time that these psalms were written, of the sons of Korah. And this one was, I love the way this psalm started off. Beautiful. Like the deer that yearns for running streams, so my soul is yearning for you, my God. What a beautiful image. What a beautiful visual, and you can even picture it. You remember walking through the woods, you see the deer drinking at the stream there, and how peaceful that and serene that situation, that scenario is, and so our soul, just like drinking from the stream in a peace, our soul longing for that peace, drinking from the wellspring of God's salvation that Jesus won for us on the cross, drinking from the graces that we receive in that beautiful sacrament. I love that. Um, but we're picking up here at verse 10. I will say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? So okay, so what's happening here? So so he's like the deer that yearns for running streams, so my soul is yearning for you, my God. So that's the way he starts off. And but then he's going under some kind of persecution is happening. My tears have become my bread, my night by day, as to say to me all the day long, where is your God? Right? So there's some kind of despair that the sons of Korah are writing about here. Um, and so it says, I will say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why do I go mourning, oppressed by the foe? Now, of course, a couple things here. First of all, this is reminiscent of Psalm 22, where a messianic psalm of fulfillment written by David, like 800 years before Jesus was even born, where Jesus is saying, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Now we know, of course, that God never forsook his son. He never forsakes any of us. It's just that sometimes it feels like we are cut off from God. It feels like God doesn't love us or is not supporting us. That's not the case, but it feels like that sometimes. And so the psalmist is having that same emotion, right? Is expressing that same sentiment in this verse here. Why have you forgotten me? Why do I go mourning, oppressed by the foe? And that's just a natural human reaction. Why is this happening to me? Why, Lord, are you allowing this to happen? Why does this continue in my life? Why do I go mourning, oppressed by the foe? Why am I burdened with this heaviness? The weight of the cross that I've been given is heavy, Lord. Help me. And it's a beautiful sentiment and very human, just crying out for help in a time of distress. He says, with a deadly wound in my bones, my enemies revile me. Right? So with a deadly wound in my bones, my enemies revile me. So in other words, they're kicking me when I'm down. Right? So I'm going through this pain, I'm going through this trauma, I'm going through whatever, I'm experiencing in my life. And what are they doing? They're mocking me. They're ridiculing me. They're reviling me. Imagine that. You're going through something difficult. Instead of someone helping you, instead of someone empathizing with you, they pile it on. They make the situation even worse. How heartless that is. But yet, there are people in the culture that don't know Jesus, that don't know his love, that have never truly encountered living God. And these are the people that don't know how else to react to something like this, and so they react with animosity and with spite and with vitriol, you know. And they say to me all the day long, "Where is your God?" Right? And remember, when Jesus went on the cross, he said, "If you're God, save yourself. Come down from that cross." And so we cry out during this oppression, where is they say, where is your God? Where is your God right now? I thought your God was a God who saves. I thought your God was a God of love. And look what's happening to you right now. And it's almost like they're trying to justify their indignation by saying, see, if there was a God that I could believe in, then this wouldn't be happening to you. But see, this is exactly why I don't believe in God. Look what you're going through right now. What kind of loving God would allow that to happen to you? Ah, see, that's the language of the culture speaking. And so the sons of Korah are not afraid to share that sentiment. As they observe what's happening with them as they're engaging in the culture, that the culture is pushing back against people of faith. And then it repeats that line. This line's repeated. Let me see, a couple different times in this psalm, which is an exact phrasing from verse number 6. So verse 6 and verse 12 are synonymous parallels. All right, so they're basically articulating the very same idea here. Uh, why are you cast down, my soul? Why groan within me? Hope in God. I will praise him yet again, my saving presence and my God. I love that. It's kind of like two things are going on within the soul of the sons of Korah here. On the one hand, he's saying, "Lord, look at my enemies. They're reviling me. They're mocking me. They're saying to me, 'Where's your God? Where are you right now, Lord?'" And so he's questioning, "How come you're not showing forth your power right now in the midst of these pagans?" But at the other side, he says, and he's just saying, "Well, why are you so cast down, my soul? Where's your hope in God?" You know, so I love that juxtaposition, right? So at one side, he's saying, he's frustrated, but at the other side, he's saying, "Why are you so frustrated? Just put your trust in God, and eventually things are going to work out."
Yeah, and that's why it's important when we're sharing things that are going on in our lives that we are leaning into God with our faith, and then the world who doesn't understand how he works or what he's doing, that it's almost like they've allowed that we allowed them to throw their fears into us. And so then the fear starts to balance the faith, and then we have to get away from that in order to be able to let the faith overcome the fear, because otherwise we could easily sit in a woe is me or as a Lord, why is this happening? I don't want to go through this. But we know that if you've experienced anything from God or recognized him in your life at all, you know that if you look back on those times that you didn't like going through things, the good that came from it, the amazing miracles or the relationships or the connection to Him that you now have because of that. So we have to always cling to that and not let someone else's fear or lack of knowledge of God to keep us from where we know we should be sitting.
For more on the Psalms with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, check out Beacon of Truth weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio and streaming everywhere you listen to podcasts.